When we're talking about making your product real, that kind of ties into what I talked about this week on my free newsletter at joindamon.me. Joindamon.me comes out every Wednesday morning. And what I talked about today was making mistaking quiet work for stagnation. What I mean by that is sometimes things get really quiet and really silent, not in the sense of, oh, okay, this is a nice quiet time and I'm hanging out with my kids or I'm by myself and it's all cozy. We just had a lot of rain here in Las Vegas, which I love rain. And so all cozy in bed and all that stuff. No, I mean that quiet and that silence when you're revving to go, when you want to change, when you're uncomfortable and you want to make some new stuff happen and it's just not coming together yet. We can mistake that for failing. We can mistake that for not doing anything. We can mistake that for us just being wrong in our hypothesis. You might have a certain vision as far as where you want things to go, what product or service you think should be out there, where you should be financially and otherwise, what impact you should be making in the world. And sometimes it feels like it's not just gelling quite yet. But then ideally, you have these really high highs where you make your first sale, or when you're on a stage. In my case, I'm a professional speaker. So when you're on a stage and you've been wanting to get on that stage for a long time, I argue that it's the woodworking, the time behind the scenes that allows those major peaks to happen. So if we end up being resentful when we have things that are quiet, that's just going to make it harder when we actually do have those opportunities because we're not going to be ready. There's literally, I can make a list. If you know me, I'm into index cards. I got 3 or 4 index cards up here of things that I'm waiting to happen, or I'm building to happen, or I've been working behind the scenes. In some cases, for years. I am not exaggerating. For years. And I'm confident that those things will happen. But there's a timing to things. And also, sometimes when those things don't move forward, then you have an opportunity to turn your back a little bit and get back in the workshop, make it tighter. There's stuff that I've wanted to launch literally for months, and I've had a setback, or things haven't worked out how I expected, or it wasn't quite what I wanted. And then I was talking to a good friend about it. You might be watching, shout out to you, where I'm like, oh, wait, why I keep coming back to do this thing. And every time I come back better. I was like, wow, I just realized that. The frustration of wanting to do something over and over again. But then you start to come back that third time. In this case, it's actually the fourth time I'm trying to do this thing. And I'm like, wait a second. How did I get more game? How did that happen? I didn't notice it was happening. And I mean this 500% sincerely from a very humble place, not as a flex. The thing is that when you're woodworking, when you're in that quiet, you don't recognize the work you're putting in. It's like, again, the classic analogy of being in the gym, and suddenly you got some stronger muscles. It's like, wait, how did that happen? You're in a situation where you're in a rough dynamic with like a family member or somebody you care about or whatever, and then suddenly something happens and you handle it fine. You're like, well, how did I handle it fine? I was just flying off the handle, a moment ago. You're learning. And so when we're talking about making your product real, that's the behind the scenes. You get into trouble when you say, this product's going to come out. Save this space. I'm going to do this. I found that we tend to get tied up in that because then it creates unnecessary pressure. Instead, just do the work. Just shut up and do the work. That's all. When you shut up and do the work, then you're able to build in quiet. And then as you get it closer to where it's supposed to be, then you start to bring it out into the world. So the first in this series that we had a week ago, we talked about building stuff and setting up the infrastructure essentially so that things can thrive. Now, with this episode, we're talking about building something, creating something, and getting partnership from that level. Again, today's newsletter talks about that. Shout out to y'all that subscribe. You can subscribe for free, and whether it's to Bring Your Worth TV and or to joindamon.me.